So, good morning to all. On the second of the Two Oceans Graduate Institute Higher Education webinar series, today is the follow-up on the first one, which was done by my colleagues Amanda and Masnoona. It was hosted by Masnoona and presented by Amanda, and that was on online pedagogy. Today is an equally important one that is being presented, and is one that often is taken for granted and kind of pushed aside, but is extremely important and becoming even more important as the world progresses to new types of technology and new forms of knowledge and knowledge gathering. Okay. I'd like to welcome you today to today's webinar series on research visibility and impact, with emphasis also, underlying emphasis on digital tools and the strategies. So we're going to be looking at overall strategy. Tendai is going to be speaking to overall strategy, and then practical digital tools that can be used for research visibility and impact. Research, just a few words from my side. Research-based education is becoming increasingly important in the discourse around education, tertiary education and research. There's also conversations and engagements and research being done on student-staff partnerships. That's starting to actively happen at some of the tertiary institutions, particularly at postgraduate level. Then something that we are already practicing at TOGI and a few other private providers, which is final year projects, final year portfolios, and of course work integrated learning research that is done. The last one being very heavily reliant on experiential or action-based learning and research. So this becomes extremely important, and you can't ignore the discourse on the need for making research more central to the teaching, learning, and assessing of tertiary education students. I think what's most important, particularly in today's presentation that is going to be given to you by Tendai, is the fact that there needs to be a support in the transition of students from undergraduate to postgraduate. That's going to be an extremely important component, because all too often academic support in terms of writing and in terms of research is normally looked at usually at higher certificate level or first year degree level. And very little emphasis is actually put on support for students transitioning from an NQ of 7, which is the final year of their qualification, to postgraduate. So without much ado, Tendai, I'm going to now introduce you and blast your horn about all the wonderful things you've done to date. Okay. Tendai is the research coordinator and e-librarian at TOGI. He's also a final year master's in information science student at the University of Pretoria. So he's proudly Turkish. If that's correct. Okay. He chose to a university away from the coast, and brags about being close to the Union building so he's not affected by power outages, which is a real issue in South Africa at the moment. Okay. He has 10 years of experience in research support services. He has published 4 journal articles. He has written a chapter in a book. He has participated and presented in international conferences in Ghana, Namibia, Malawi, and South Africa. He's also been awarded prizes, most notably at the Africa Library Summit, the UNISA Vice Chancellor's Research Award. Well done, Tendai, side note. Okay. And most recently has been appointed as a Open Repository Fellow, which is literally a couple of days old, at the Montana State University. So without much ado, over to you, Tendai.
Thank you, Mr. Redwan, for the generous introduction and accolades. It is a great honor to be speaking about research visibility and research impact, especially from the perspective of private higher institutions. It's a strategy that is novel, considering that this is one of the institutions that has seen it fit to kickstart conversations around such an important aspect. Not only preparing students for the now, but we are looking at this in the aspect of the next generation of researchers that are to come out of our private institutions. And as such, it is a very strategic aspect on part of TOGI to be involved in such scholarly communication discussions and discourses that even are challenging some of the prestigious institutions around the world. So my presentation, basically, the outline is as follows. I'll look at the private higher education institutions in South Africa and the mandate upon them, to the research mandate they have in terms of contributing to the body of knowledge. I'll look at the scholarly communication environment, what changes have happened in the scholarly communication environment that give us the need to talk about visibility, to talk about impact. What is it that has happened within scholarly communication in terms of the way research is being practiced, the way research is being shared, and the way research is being discovered. And then we will look also at the research dimensions in terms of what support services can be offered for students and academic staff. What is it that is in line with the current emerging practices in scholarly communication? Then, of course, the topical issue also revolves around research data management, which is now an important aspect of doing research. Our research is now data-driven and data-intensive. Then we also look at digital research dissemination platforms. What platforms do we have available for our researchers as private higher education institutions to communicate their findings? And what strategies, therefore, can be adopted, customized, and implemented at various private higher education institutions? So to start, the context of private higher education institutions in South Africa and how they engage, or they are supposed to engage with research, or they are supposed to be conducting research. There is worldwide acknowledgement that private higher education institutions are playing a significant role in providing access to higher education. There is evidence from research that shows that private higher educations actually have got a higher students completion rate. There's better student experience. There is increasing recognition of the programs that they offer and the way they are articulated. So in South Africa, by and large, public universities are fewer than the private higher education institutions, which goes a long way to demonstrate that they close a gap in terms of access to higher education. But however, within that context, there is a kind of a problem when it comes to research feasibility and research impact. Of note, the Council of Higher Education, abbreviated there as CHE, has noted that there is continual perpetuation of the fact that private higher education institutions are profit-oriented and at times they sacrifice quality for profit, which is not verified by research, but it's also an issue that can be mitigated if research from private higher education institutions is visible and garners impact, and this goes a long way to dispel some of these notions. It is also noted by other scholars that information about research from private higher education is almost non-existent. So, from a scientific point of view, being not visible and not seen on digital platforms and other outlets of research does not necessarily mean there is no research that is going on in private higher education institution. What it may mean is that the research is done or is being carried out, but the infrastructure, the tech know-how, and the expertise to then leverage this research into scholarly communication audiences and beyond is what is limiting the visibility of the research outputs. As such, it is recommended by the Council of Higher Education that private higher education institutions need to demonstrate how they embed research into their institutions. And it is looking that this proclamation was done in 2021, and we are here as part of the private higher education institutions. It is something that is commendable for Two Oceans Graduate Institute to be involved in such conversations. It shows their strategic focus, that it's not only an institution that is looking at the now, but it's looking into the future and contributing to the body of knowledge in South Africa. So in terms of the frameworks that guide public higher education institutions in South Africa, we have 3 critical documents: that the supplementary of audits by the Council of Higher Education. Page 17 of that document articulates the standards and the framework that should be followed by private higher education. Principally, it also communicates how they should articulate research development within their institutions, how academics are going to be supported, how the research is going to be communicated, and they actually point out that the research definition that has been put up by the Department of Higher Education can be assimilated by these private higher education institutions, because the way they are viewed, evaluated, is the same with public institutions. Therefore, it means for them to do research, it's actually an obligation that is actually legally binding, especially for those offering postgraduate, master's and doctoral studies. Then if you look at the strategic plan for 2020-25 from CHE as well, it speaks to the contribution, the expectations that they have of private higher education institutions. And the National Development Plan also highlights that. So, in essence, we are now in an era of open scholarship, and our background is that the research we have from private higher education institution is not quite visible, and therefore it's limited in terms of impact. So open scholarship becomes the springboard upon which we can build this visibility and impact. For open scholarship means encompassing open access, open data, open educational resources, and all other forms of openness that seeks to remove barriers and access to knowledge as it is created and shared. That is from the Association of Research Libraries. Then I want to, at least so that we are operating from the same wavelength, to show the transformation that has happened in scholarly communication that leads us to where we are now clamoring for research visibility and impact. There's a lot that has happened in the scholarly communication terrain, and as far back as 1990, the major turning point there was the use of the internet, which opened up.
Hello? Your slide, you might want to move your slide.
Scholarly communication transformation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so the developments that have happened in scholarly communication are a function of technology and a function of change in practice by research funders, their demands upon researchers. You recognize that those who fund research have a bigger say in how research is supposed to be conducted. So if what actually triggered most of these developments is the fact that around 1990, we experienced what is called a serials crisis, where journals and other research products which were subscription-based, they were so exorbitantly priced that most universities and most consumers of research could actually not afford those. And it furthered the digital divide between the haves and have-nots in terms of access to subscription-based research outputs. So there were movements and deliberations, notably the Budapest Open Access, and most of these were anchored from Germany, where it was argued that knowledge is built upon consumption of other knowledge. So if we close barriers to knowledge and make knowledge accessible to only those who can afford, it means there is no development in terms of pushing the frontiers of knowledge. But what is needed is opening access to knowledge for the consumption of all those who are interested, so that all researchers have got an equal access to knowledge that they can use to build upon. So there are various developments, all prefixed by open, that then emerged. But chief amongst those was open access, which is widely popular. That's why we see most of our institutions have got what are called institutional repositories. These are platforms where they communicate their internal research outputs to the entire world. But everything was driven by the fact that knowledge is a public good. Most of the knowledge is funded by taxpayers' money. There's no need for us to close access to this knowledge for the better of the development of knowledge disciplines. Then we get to a point where post-2010, we now have several derivatives of open scholarship. We have open science, research data sharing, research data archiving, data repositories, and open research. All these are derivatives that seek to create equality in terms of sharing of knowledge and access to knowledge for the better of humanity. So Forster Open Science taxonomy has presented it clearly as to how we frame open science. So we are looking at open access, open data, and open educational resources. All these are attempts and concepts that seek to provide even distribution of knowledge without any barriers. Chief amongst these developments is the fact that open science provides transparency and democratization of knowledge. Transparency in the fact that if your research is open, it is open to scrutiny by other researchers, and so it gives a better leverage in terms of the development of researchers amongst themselves as peers. Then during the COVID-19 era that we all witnessed, there was massive sharing of research data and research outputs between researchers from across geography. So this diagram shows the level of research data sharing that happened during COVID-19, and this is also credited that it is also credited that this sharing of data and sharing of research is what got us out of the pandemic. The way researchers were quick to share their discoveries, to share their sequencing of the virus, and so forth. So you see the intensity that was happening there. The thickness of the arrow shows the volume of the outputs or the research that was being shared across these countries. And the color, yes?
We can't see the slide.
This slide.
Can you just put the slide on the screen, please? Just.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
No.
You're on this one.
Still not.
I'm looking at this slide right now.
I think there's a lot of work that went to that slide, and I think it would be a shame if the audience doesn't see it.
And please try Alt Tab. Until you find your slide.
This one? Are we there?
That's the one you're looking for?
Yes. The one with the South Africa, the web, the one that shows the web kind of.
Yes, with China, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, that one.
Yes,
all right.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
So this is the graphical presentation of how data, research data, and research outputs were shared amongst scientists during the COVID-19. And we have so much evidence from literature that shows that it was the speed with which data was being shared amongst researchers that actually provided solutions during this era. So in terms of our narration, that when data or research outputs are visible, they create greater impact. They create a better way of collaboration, association, and networking amongst the researchers. And this has propelled most institutions to ground research visibility and research impact, even at undergrad level. We now have some institutions offering a course, some title it Data 101, which actually tries to impart skills of data use, data management amongst undergraduate students, rather than them have just a feel of data management when they do their research project, but some have incorporated this as part of the curriculum. Then on the next slide, I'm showing the open science developments in Africa, what has been happening in Africa as far back as 2020. You can see that some countries actually have got different projects and different initiatives aimed at leveraging science for the public good. And you see that in South Africa, we also talk of the policy in terms of research data management, their project, the SK project, and we have actually institutions that have been put up in South Africa to increase the leveraging of research sharing and improving the communication of research results and research products, as it were. So this is not only an issue that affects institutions, private higher education institutions, but this is at a global, national, and institutional level, and it's quite a topical issue that is very important. Within South Africa, this is what has happened. There's a lot of initiatives that have actually been kickstarted. Chief amongst these, we have been told that the open science policy for South Africa is now ready for gazetting. I think this was communicated late last year. We are yet to see what comes of it. But what it means is private higher education institutions, they do not necessarily have to wait for the gazetting of the open science policy, but we can be proactive, given that the tools and the means of understanding and embarking on the values and the practices of open science are available to us. We have the African Open Science Platform. As you can see, it is well resourced by the departments, the National Research Fund, the Department of Science and Innovation. This is just to show the intensity of efforts and the investment that is being done to make sure that research integration and adoption and adaptation of open science becomes a reality from the vantage point of knowing that the research is not only for research's sake, but it is research that can solve some of these societal challenges that we have. So in terms of defining research visibility refers to how well other scientists or general public know your research, and how are you known as a researcher? If you're an academic, how well are you known in terms of your particular field, in terms of your subcategory field of research? So this visibility speaks to how researchers and the research institutions package themselves within the scholarly communication landscape and how they then participate in that arena. Then research impact. Following the definition by Glasgow University, research impact means research making a difference beyond any academic borders out in the society and in the world. So we have reached a stage where research is not for research's sake, but research is supposed to solve problems beyond communicating to the scholarly communication audience. Research has to be adopted by policymakers. The research has to be converted into products and services. And all this can only happen if the research is visible, if the research is discoverable, if the research is accessible, if the research is reusable. So when we talk about research visibility and research impact, we are looking at the tools and the means by which we can expose our research to the communities beyond the academic and the scholarly community. Why has this become an issue in terms of impact? Why is it that impact now is considered a major indicator of research quality than the previous traditional ways that we used to evaluate research? So previously, conventional metrics, they simply gauged your research prowess by the number of publications. If you have 50, you have 20, if you have 30, that is the mark of scholarship that was used before. And tenure and evaluation boards considered those. But there was a shift. If I can use an example of a journal impact factor. If we talk of a journal impact factor, we are talking of the impact of the journal as a whole. We are not talking of the impact of individual articles within the journals and the individual authors within that journal. So what it means there, that kind of impact factor becomes vague if we are to look at the individual articles contained in that journal. If we have 6 articles in a journal and we say the impact factor of the journal is 5. So it means we are sharing the impact factor of the 5 articles. Where it scientifically, we might have one article having a different level of impact to the next article. So those kind of traditional metrics are sort of being abandoned because they simply show quantity as opposed to quality. So we have come to impact as a factor in terms of the research, who is using this research, how is the research being cited, what is being said about the research. And we have come to what are called alternative metrics that are simply showing what the social discourse is saying about your research. Then there are also impact measurement in terms of our metric.com, PlumX, and impact factor. So why is this important? This is important because at the end of the day, this is what is used to gauge and evaluate the quality of your research. So from our thesis, we are saying that if there is low visibility of research from private higher education institutions, what it means is on the digital platforms and on the evaluation metrics, it also means they are scoring low. That's why you hardly maybe find the ranking of these private higher education institutions on the Shanghai Web Higher Institutions ranking, the Times Higher Institutions ranking. But you also see that within those rankings, there are quite a lot of private universities that are doing, European private universities that are doing very well in terms of ranking. So when they are ranking these, when institutions are being ranked, academic institutions are being ranked, 65% of the indices that are being used are research related. You see that citation, they contribute 30%. How is the research from this particular institution or the researchers affiliated to this particular institution being cited? And these are the indices: research reputation, institutional income, papers published. All of them, they speak to the visibility and impact of research. So for private higher education institutions, they should be alive to the fact that the publication of research is not the end, but a means to an end. We need a trajectory that says after publishing, what happens of the research. We need to propel the research to levels where citations can be increased, visibility is increased, and ultimately the impact is increased. We have educational research journals that also have been attributed to have low impact factor. We have the South African Journal of Education, Perspective of Education and Education Exchange, and the other journal. I know the pronunciation of that journal is quite problematic, but this is just to illustrate that the journals are available, but what is a challenge is the visibility, the impact factor, and so forth. So when we are creating our strategy as private higher education institutions, apart from capacitating students on research, apart from capacitating our academics on research, the thrust should be: how do we sustain the visibility? How do we sustain the impact of our research outputs? Because the research that we are carrying out has got an economic, cultural, and political influence. It goes beyond the narrow dimensions of attaining qualifications. Then we have got the Organization for Economic Cooperation. They published a book, Who Cares About Using Education, Research in Policy and Practice. It's a book that talks about there's so much potential from research to influence policy and practice, but this research is not finding its way to the target audience, who are our policymakers and our decision makers at various echelons of society. The demand for research visibility and the research impact is actually hinged upon the research funders, and they have come out clear that closed research is never going to be funded. Funders will have none of it. We are talking of the major funders of research. A survey that was done amongst these funders, about 67% of the funders stated that yes, they will not fund research that is not shared, that is not properly packaged in such a way that is accessible to the wider community. And therefore, we reach to a question that says, at our institutions, the private higher education institutions, what research support services, therefore, can we map, can we practice, or can we embed, so that one, we produce a graduate that is a research data astute. Remember, these graduates are going either to further their education or they are going into practice, but they should be graduates that are very conscious either to open access values and practices or to the value of research itself in decision making. As I pointed out earlier, that our discourse of science now is based on data. It's data intensive, and data is the, as they say, data is the new oil. It is the new currency of reaching decisions. Everything that we now conclude, we need data. So there are two dimensions to it at our institutions that we can look at. We can look at research data management. We can look at research dissemination as two categories or ways through which we can support, we can anchor our research support services. So research data management, principally, we are looking at the data that is collected, observed, created for purposes of analysis. Any research project that is carried out at whatever level, especially at institutions of higher learning, requires data management, be it undergrad, honors, postgrad, or PhD. So research funding agencies, including those who are funding education, they now require a plan and a good data management practice. So before you submit your project, it is actually a requirement that you provide a research data management plan. And this has actually become a prerequisite at most universities, that when you're doing even your master's project, you need, in your proposal, there's a section where you need to articulate how you are going to manage the data that you are going to collect. That this is actually well grounded, especially for those who are teaching this to first-year students and students just before they embark on their research projects. So most funders, Bill Melinda Gates, Carnegie Corporation, these fund research in the education sector. All these, they require data management plans. So we have an example of a tool, DataCite, which is a non-profit international organization which provides a way for researchers to obtain credit and recognition for sharing research. So on this platform, you find that researchers are able to archive their data, are able to publish their data, and when they publish this data on this platform, the data is actually cited as a research output, and there's recognition to it. But chief amongst its functions is the sharing of research data. Let me hasten to mention that why is it important to share research data? Sharing research data minimizes duplication of efforts. One, sharing of data also is a cost-saving move when carrying out research. For example, the data that has been obtained by someone who was looking at a particular problem, a research problem, might answer some other research problem that they did not have in mind. So when this data is exposed to the wider research community, it means that new trends, new conclusions, new interpretations can be made of the same data without necessarily going back to collect the data. So it's one of the key pillars upon which the need to make research data visible and the way it is going to obtain impact is built upon, because it has been realized that sharing research data actually can solve multiple problems simultaneously without necessarily having the data being recollected or collected in different settings and circumstances. So the principles guiding the visibility of research data are called FAIR principles. FAIR meaning the research data that we are producing or that we are going to produce should be findable. Can the data be located? Is it discoverable? The data should be accessible. If found, can it be accessed? What are the authentication authority levels? Then is it interoperable? Our research space is technologically intensive. So by interoperability, we mean after doing your research and after posting your data, can it be integrated with other data? Can it be integrated with other applications available? And can it fit to other research workflows? So this interoperability actually speaks to the ease of manipulating data. Remember, when your data that you have used in your research is being reused, it means it's of value and there is credit that goes to it. So there is need to have a conscious effort to expose or to make this data visible. Then the R represents reusability. Can your data be replicated? So part of the insistence by funders to say your data should be, research data should be reusable. There is this concept that there was a fraud in science where where actually the world was witnessing results, but the data that produced the results was nowhere to be seen, and there was there are a lot of cases in literature and on the internet of falsification of data. So these principles now come in to create transparency in terms of research data and connecting it to research results. So actually the joke is, okay, fine, these are your results, but where is the data? That is the major question when you say, I've published the results, I've reached the conclusion. People now, or researchers, the scientific community and beyond, they also require to see your data. That's why we have now emerging platforms for increasing the visibility of research data. So in terms of our research data services at our institutions, be it private or public, we look at the data life cycle, and you find that at each and every level of the data research cycle, the students or the academics, they need assistance at each and every level. So the levels I have are shown in the cycle there. In yellow, those are the kind of support services that are required. So that is what we need to educate or to train our researchers and students in terms of research data management. For example, as they are doing data collection, they also need to understand the usage rights. They also need to understand the citation, the data that what happens to the citations of the data. As they are storing the data, they also need to understand what are the various infrastructure available for storing data. What are the metadata requirements for making sure that your data is well described and your data, it can be easily discovered, and your data can be attributed in one way or the other. So the issue of metadata is never from experience, it's never taught at any from my experience as a student. There's nowhere where we were taught how to work with metadata, how to produce metadata. But now this is part and parcel of graduate students training and researchers training. As a research support service, you now need experts or those who are articulate in terms of showing students how to create metadata, how to understand the licenses and so forth. So these I will not go through all of them. I've just demonstrated the need for research support at every stage of the data life research cycle. So on the tools side, we have what is called a DMP tool. I would have loved us to open that website, but I know in the interest of time, maybe that might take a lot of time. So here you create your data management plan that meets the requirements that promote your research. Basically, this tool does it's a template that assists you to create a data management plan. That's why it's called a DMP tool. So first, it requires you to register with an institutional email address. When you register your plan, you have registered your research. So it means someone cannot register the same research or the same plan, or cannot duplicate that plan as it is already archived and registered. So you have had instances where you are applying for a grant, for a research grant, especially with the private higher education institutions. You have to we have to compete for private funding, and most of these private funders, they will require clear data management plans. Not only that, this is also a skill set that is now required of graduates. As we train our teacher students, they should be conversant in terms of creating these data management plans, because they are one way or the other going to interact with projects, and these projects will definitely require these plans. So if you log on using your email, it's very easy to create an account. Then you answer the questions as they are given there. The other tools that speak to research data management, there are several tools that can be used, and most of these are free. So there's actually no excuse for private higher education institutions to then fail to harness these infrastructural services that actually can store, archive, and manage data on their behalf without necessarily requiring them to create separate infrastructures at their own institutions. So there are a lot of them. I have had the experience of Zenodo, Figshare, Dryad. There are so many, and Zotero and Mendeley as the reference management systems. They've also come in to manage research data. Then our example for today is Figshare, which is used as a tool for storage, sharing, and discovering research. So it's an open access repository. It's used to preserve, share research outputs, including figures, datasets, images, and videos. The beauty of Figshare is that it is actually country specific. We have got Figshare South Africa, and that link is what we needed to open, but I don't know in terms of time if we can do that. But basically what it means is researchers are depositing their data and other products, even lecture notes, they are being deposited on Figshare. And when you download them, they count as citations, they count as a impact on the originator of the data set or the artifact, as it were. So this is another platform that private higher education institutions can use to improve research visibility and impact, because as long as the platform allows for citations and for use, that is quite a long, goes a long way in improving visibility and impact. Then apart from research data management, we have research, the other dimension is research dissemination, where we talk of open access publishing. This means that our researchers and students, whatever partnership they have in terms of publishing their research results, they can increase the outreach or the impact of their research outputs by using open access platforms that actually have got 3 different models: the green and there's the hybrid model. As you can see, we have various journal database, journal publishers that have actually embraced this open access publishing, which is also a sure way of increasing your research output. Open access technically means the end user faces no barriers other than the cost of the internet to access the research information or the knowledge. So what it means is, as long as people have access to the internet, they can access your research. So this is a sure way of reaching to a wider audience than you would do if you publish in a subscription-based journal. A subscription-based journal is accessible to those who can afford it, what we call digital affordances. But the move to publish in open access journals increases that kind of visibility we are talking of and the impact, because there's a wider range of people who can access these journals. So one platform that we have and that we also have embedded on the Two Oceans Graduate Institute Library platform is the Directory of Open Access Journals. So you can search your journals by country, and you see, as I searched education as a subject, there are about 1.8 indexed journals that are available. So it means you have the readership, if I can speak from the perspective of those who want to access the journals, it means they have got free access to these journals outside the cost of using the internet. And also our researchers in public and academics, they can then use the various models available and make sure that they can publish with these open access journals. Then in terms of our continental platforms, we have the African Journals Online. Is based here in South Africa. It's simply a portal where you find open access journals from Africa on particular disciplines. So in terms of the education field, there are 49 journals that are available, and it means you can actually look at the journals according to the country. By country, you can search the journal by country, you can search by title, you can search by alphabetically, or in terms of the category. So this is the kind of journals also that provide a platform for increasing your visibility and your impact if you publish with them. If we are looking at those who are doing research, they will come to this platform to access journals that speak to African issues in a particular field, and they use the articles from such platforms because they are free of charge. Then we also have personalized tools that we can use to increase our visibility. These are the professional media websites. I think most of us are familiar with them, but what is unique about this, they have now been integrated to the tools that I referred before. You see that they link back and forth to these personalized tools to create that consistency and to maintain the identity and use of by researchers. So these ones, I will not dwell much upon them, but what is important is that as researchers and postgraduate students, you need to have active accounts that actually increase the collaboration and networking chances, and you also get to get updates of what is happening in your subject area or in your topic of interest, because as you follow those researchers or other scientists who are researching in a particular field on these platforms, they also update developments, and this is how you get to know what is transpiring in that particular environment. Then we've got digital tools for impact tracking. As you have set up your profiles, if you have set up if you have created and submitted your data on different platforms, you now need to track your own impact without necessarily waiting to hear or without operating in the dark about how far your research is being received and consumed. So we have Google Scholar, Scopus, Web of Science. These are other impact tracking tools that we can use as researchers.
Tendai, we're going to have to wind down now.
Okay.
Because, we are
going to the end now. So from everything that I have presented here, what becomes the way forward for private higher education institutions? First and foremost, it is imperative that they partake in the development and contribution of knowledge. That is important as long as they exist in the higher education space. They should be seen to be participating in knowledge creation, knowledge sharing, and not only knowledge consumption, but they should also be active. So in terms of the strategies, there are 3 layers of strategies that need to be looked at. So there is the policy side. There is need to have a research policy strategy to plan for everything. These developments, they don't just happen in a vacuum. There's need for a clear strategy of what needs to be achieved, how, and by what means. Then the infrastructure, because cost is an issue for most private higher education institutes. But luckily now we have open software and open repositories that necessarily do not require a fund that does not charge for their services in terms of storage. So it's a matter of packaging and having the tech know-how of encroaching or of embedding your research outputs on these platforms. Then the research support services, they have to be part and parcel of the curriculum. There is a point where research support services should always be reflected upon, be improved and articulated clearly in terms of who does what and who receives what kind of training and at what stage. rather than just following the traditional means of a student writes a research proposal, they submit to the institution, it's approved, and there are so many things post-publication or post-research that can be trained, that can be used to support these students, as I highlighted earlier. With this marks the end of my presentation. Thank you for your time, and thank you for participating thank you for registering for this webinar. I welcome. I think I take it back to you, Mr. Redwan.
Okay, thank you, Tendai. Thank you for that series of information that you've presented, particularly in terms of the available resources that students and our colleagues, academic colleagues, do have access and available for them. Are there any questions from the audience? We have time, another 5 more minutes to allow for possibly 2 more questions. There's a question in the chat from Sonia De Bruin. It's a comment, I beg your pardon. Another one from Shahida Anthony. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Shahida.
So, Mr. Redwan.
Yes.
Oh, can I also point out that I will share the links that then our audience can use to explore the tools that I presented on. I think that
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. The other thing that will happen, Tendai, is that the recording of this event will be shared with our colleagues.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that would be very much appreciated. So what happens, what's the next step now for TOGI? So we have all these wonderful tools, and what's the next step? And then we can go quickly over to the question that Jean has. Nadira, could you unmute Jean? What do you think should be the next step, Tendai?
Okay, for TOGI, actually,
yes,
it's we have had we are actually in the right direction. First and foremost, the understanding by the institution that there's need for research coordination. That's a serious signal onto the way the institution understands and seeks to strategically leverage research as part of their identity and focus. So what the next steps are around harmonizing the strategy and the outcomes that we seek to achieve in the short term and in the long term, and then the implementation of various initiatives to different audiences within the TOGI community. And for example, we have academics at different levels of expertise in terms of research. That also shows that we are going to customize our strategies as according to the profiling that has been done. And also we see how we can embed this into students' understanding of research and research data management.
Okay, let's go over to Jean. Jean, you had a question? Okay, so Jean's asking the question whether we have a research output of TOGI staff. And do you want to take that question, Tendai, or can I go for it?
I can go through it, then maybe I'll elaborate.
Okay, So at the moment, Jean, TOGI has been producing its own journal, and this journal takes the form of articles or posters or pamphlets. That's in terms of the current research output of TOGI. This has been, there's been a few journals that have come out, they're annual. I think we took a pause on it last year, but yeah, I trust that answers your question. Okay, are there any other questions at the moment? Okay, I'm going to close the session in the interest of time. We've already gone 4 minutes over. Tendai, thank you very much. You've overshot your time very badly. But there's a lot to cover in terms of creating and setting up a concentrated space for research and research coordination and research tools. So thank you very much for that. It's very ambitious because there was a lot to push out. And thank you very much for that. And thank you to the audience for engaging and going through a different set of research tools that would assist in research. So thank you very much to the audience. Thank you very much to Tendai. And we look forward to the next Two Oceans Graduate Institute education webinar series. Thank you very much.